Our next speaker is Gawain Little of the National Education Union. The NEU has really been at the forefront of the fight to protect workers and communities during the pandemic. It's been demonized by the mainstream media, not just once, but multiple times. Whenever there is a debate around lockdowns, around school reopening, the NEU has been targeted by monopoly media as if it is opposed to children's education. In fact, the NEU has been playing a leading role in putting out suggestions on how to get children back to school safely and how to protect communities from the virus at the same time. Suggestions and detailed planning, which has largely been ignored by the government, mostly been ignored by the Labour Party as well. So I think that the NEU have a lot to say on this crisis. They've won important victories and they were instrumental, I believe, in making sure that children were not sent into unsafe schools at the beginning of this year. So I'm really, really pleased to hear from National Executive Member Gawain Little. Over to you, Gawain.
Thanks very much, Ben. Thanks for the invitation to speak this evening, but also thank you to the Morning Star for its consistent support for the trade union movement and for the NEU when many other papers, as you've just said, choose to attack us for standing up for our children and our education system. I want to say a little bit about the NEU's experience during COVID, our response, and some of the lessons that we've learned from that going forward. But I have to start by saying all of this takes place against a backdrop of the completely incompetent handling of this crisis by the current government. Many of the things I'm about to describe as victories should have simply been government decisions to keep our children, our education staff, our communities safe, but they weren't, because this government at every turn has made the wrong choices about its handling of this crisis, and that has led to the deaths of many people. So I want to pick up on three particular points where we intervened in the crisis. The first was when the first wave first started to take hold. People could see the pandemic was growing, rates were rising at an incredible rate. And of course, the government at the time was telling us that if we all washed our hands carefully and regularly, everything would be okay. So once again, it fell to the trade union movement, and the NEU had to raise the demand that schools and colleges education settings moved to provision for vulnerable and key worker children only. Now, this was absolutely crucial at the beginning of the crisis, and it's really important to note that contrary to lots of propaganda that's put out there by the government and by some of the media, that schools weren't and never have been closed during this crisis. We simply moved to provision for the children of key workers so they can continue to do those vital roles during the crisis, and to provision for our most vulnerable students. When we enforced that, within a few days of making that call, the government had U-turned on its position and was moving to key worker and vulnerable provision only. Then fast forward to June of last year, where the government decided to move into wider opening on the 1st of June. Initially, they wanted all children back in school. That was the demand being made. And once again, we had to step up and make the call that that opening had to be delayed and the scale of it reduced. Hugely significant then, because the scientific advice at the time said a delay of just 2 weeks would halve the risk of infection, of hospitalization, and of death. And again, through a campaign of engaging our members at the base, we were able in most workplaces to delay that wider opening. And then, of course, January of this year, where the government once again wanted to rush people back into education, this time with not only rising rates far above levels that they'd been throughout the rest of the autumn term, but also with a new variant, which it's believed spreads much more effectively amongst young people and posed really significant health risks to the entire community. So once again, we had to take a really, really difficult decision, but we had to take the decision to advise all of our members that their workplaces weren't safe and that they should enact their rights under Section 44 of the Health and Safety Work Act in order to not enter an unsafe workplace. And once again, within 24 hours, of bringing children back into school, the government had U-turned and moved to key worker and vulnerable provision only. At each point we were proved right, but at each point it was us who had to deliver what the government should have done. During that period, we've gained 50,000 new members. We've recruited 4,500 new workplace representatives, and we've doubled the numbers of Black reps and LGBT plus reps that we have in the workplace. I count those as successes in the face of government intransigence. However, when we unpick them, why we achieved those successes, I think there are lessons for us going forward. The first of those is that in each of those victories, there was a question of how we framed the issue. Yes, we were protecting the rights of our members, the rights of educators, but we weren't just looking at those. We were looking at protecting the rights, the safety of the children that we teach, of their families, of the wider community. It had to be framed in that context. While schools have been carrying out vulnerable key worker provision only, we have constantly fought for the government to invest in ICT, in the digital infrastructure to enable children to be learning successfully at home. We've had to fight them over free school meals alongside campaigners like Marcus Rashford and others, and won on the question of free school meals, but we've constantly been fighting for that. Most recently, again, in the face of the government not providing the resources that our children need to learn at home, we launched with the Mirror a campaign to Help a Child to Learn campaign, where we started off by donating 1 million towards resources for children learning at home. But let me be clear, that isn't just about charity, it's a political campaign. The government should be stepping up and providing these resources. If they don't, it's down to us to look after our own, the trade union movement, to step up, but also to highlight and to put pressure on the government to fulfill its duties. The second lesson, I think, for us is that we've had to take risks and we've had to invest in new technology. Much of our organising, like for many other unions, has been done online. We've twice, we believe, broken the record for the largest ever Zoom meetings, and we think our meeting in January, in which 70,000 members of our union participated, is possibly the largest trade union meeting ever held in history. Another 400,000 have watched it online since then. We had to invest in technology that existed, but also in developing our own technology. So behind the scenes, we created workplace checklist apps, which take the health and safety checklist we put together to make schools as COVID secure as possible, and put those into an app where workplace reps or members in the workplace can tick off each of those conditions to check if their workplace is safe, and it automatically reports back at branch level, at regional level, and into a national database. There's no other way we could have compiled national databases of health and safety infringements in every education workplace in the country. We created an NEU escalation app, which takes our members through the process of carrying out a collective dispute in the workplace, allows them to click for support at each level of the process, and gives them guidance on how to stage that process step by step. So investing in technology has been massively important for us, but crucially, this is not technology to replace workplace organising. It's technology to enable real face-to-face organising in the workplace. Technology isn't the replacement, it's about how we build. But finally, and for us, I think the most important bit of learning has been at each stage, we went to our members in the workplace. When we set out the 5 tests for a safe return back in June, we could have simply made that a national union policy and demand, but we didn't. We asked every rep across the country to get a signed letter from all of the employees in their workplace to the head teacher saying that they wouldn't return until their union said it was safe. We asked all of our branches to get a signed letter from every workplace rep and a representative from every school and college in their local authority area to the local authority stating the same. At each stage, we've taken the long route to build and organise in the workplace, because we know that's the only place that we can truly win. We've had clear national policies delivered workplace by workplace, employer by employer. And for me, I think that is the biggest bit of learning, because fundamentally, the union is not in headquarters, it's in the workplace.